We have seen that we must know God. We've seen that we must have God's love truly in us and perfected in us. And now, as we come to the end of verse 5, John says, "By this we may know that we are in Him." By this we know that we are in Him. Not just that we are in Him, but know that we are in Him. We are in a God whom we know. And that between us, as we were looking at yesterday, is a real and perfect covenant of peace and love. And so John is really trying to trumpet this. It's a worthwhile achievement to know that we are in Him in that way. And so what I want us to do now, today and tomorrow, mainly tomorrow, is to look at what it means to be in Him. Because really the issue with this is that it is the natural coming into contact with the supernatural. Us, human beings, with a God who is supernatural, His Spirit. And so therefore immediately we find ourselves at a bit of a loss, or much of a loss even. And this is why it is all too easy for us to go all mystical and ethereal and try to come up with an answer that seems to fit when actually it doesn't. So we need to tread carefully here, not to go all spiritual. And anyway, so firstly, and this is very important, when we are in God, this does not mean that we leave our physical bodies behind and mystically become one with Him in spirit. He does not assimilate us into Himself. He does not absorb us or swallow us up into His divine essence. And this is so important to remember in this relationship that we have with us and God, because we maintain our own distinct personality, just as He does. And so we have a relationship with Him as two understanding, intelligent beings. That's so important to remember that we, we maintain who we are. Who we are. We don't just have to leave everything behind, and yeah, it's not mystical. It's not that spiritual in that way. We don't have to become super spiritual, and so we are called to be in Him, and this is important as well. We're called to be in Him. Not in His church or His home or His family or His kingdom, but Himself. We are to be in Him, in Himself. And not until we enter into this relationship can it be described to us. And this is that problem that we have if we don't know what this relationship is supposed to be about, or even that we maybe have a wrong idea about it. And so the problem is that until we enter into this relationship, we don't know what it is. Why? Because there is no way that we could make sense of it beforehand. Even our best imagination cannot comprehend it. Only in loving Him can we apprehend it, understand it, and prove it to be in Him. And this is what Paul means in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9, when he says, But as it is written, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love Him. And so God has prepared all of these things for us who love Him. But eye hasn't seen it, ear hasn't heard it, it hasn't entered into our heart, into our understandings. We just can't comprehend it these things which God has prepared for us until we actually enter into it, into that relationship. And so in this relationship, we bring ourselves and he brings himself. And so what we find is in this relationship where we are covered by God with his outstretched arms, just like a mother hen gathers us and gathers her chicks under her wings, that the we're just gathered and covered by him, by his own divine perfections. This is what he is bringing into this relationship. And then how we in this relationship identify ourselves with him is that our interests are his interests. Our joy is his joy. And he identifies himself with us. That is, his grace covers our guilt. His strength overcomes our weakness. His glory brings in our salvation. And this is what being in him is. Being surrounded on all sides by his embrace, as he embraces us and holds us in him. What we've got to remember is that we're bringing what we have and he's bringing what he has, but what we want is to take all that he is giving to us. Because as we know, in this covenant, as we make this treaty with him, we want all the blessings that he has to give to us. And that's really the key to this whole relationship, isn't it? Is that God wants to give to us his blessings. And that's what makes this relationship so special, so different to what the world gives. And that's why I was saying yesterday that the marriage example isn't really a good example, because there we have two fallen beings trying to love each other fallenly. But what we have when we have our relationship with God, when we are in him, is that he brings into this relationship all that he is and pours it out onto us. And what we do is we take hold of that and we keep that. We keep his word, as we were looking at yesterday. And just really a key verse from the Psalms, and the Psalms are just wonderful. Psalm 125 verse 2 says this. The psalmist says this: as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people from this time forth and forevermore. And we get that image, don't we? That picture, don't we? As the mountains surrounded Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people. He embraces us. He holds on to us. He covers us. He clothes us. We go back to the parable of the prodigal son, don't we? And where the cloak is placed upon us, that cloak of righteousness now from Christ, that ring of showing we are of inheritance is placed upon our finger. A feast is thrown, and so we are in him because he brings us into him. He cloaks us. He surrounds us with his loving arms. He gathers us under his wings. His people are in him. And then again, Psalm 91 verse 1. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And again, we're under the shadow. He's big, we're small. But we come under that shadow that he covers us. When we come into that secret place of him, when we dwell, when we live in him, when we are in him. So we are in him. And what we need to really know is what this implies for us when we walk in the light with him as he is in the light. And so we enter into his insight, his sympathy, his rest and his working as we fellowship in the light. And what I want to do tomorrow is really just see what this really means for us to be in him. What does it mean to be in him? We'll have touched on it a bit because God gives us his blessings. But what are these blessings? What does it mean? What does God bring into this covenant of love, of joy? And that's tomorrow. Okay, so until then, take care and God bless.